Welcome to the Positively No Gambling podcast, the pro football show that is definitely not about betting. My name's Glenn Fraser. It's Friday, August 1st, and this is the 2025 team preview for the Arizona Cardinals. So here's how these previews are going to work. We will first review two big questions from the start of the offseason, which we came up with. We'll do a 2024 recap, an overview of 2025, including additions, losses, strengths, weaknesses, a 2025 schedule preview, some advanced stats and trends to look out for, as well as an early against the spread lean, any bets that we like ATS. We'll conclude then on two big questions and give a preliminary under-over pick for the season. The final over-unders will be done as part of the NFC and AFC previews, which will go out right before the season starts. And we're going to be doing one team preview per day from August 1st until September 1st, right leading right up into the season. With that said, let's kick off the preview. So the two big questions for the Cardinals are, can they significantly improve this defense? And can Marvin Harrison Jr. be an elite wide receiver one? So the defense, a lot has been made about how sneaky good they were, especially at the end of last season. They were top 10 defensive EPA per play. Definitely not a team you would think of as having a great defense, and they didn't have a great defense. They had a good defense with some good parts that had some serious flaws, including the pass rush and the run stop. And Marvin Harrison Jr., that's pretty self-explanatory. He was drafted top five, kind of a no-brainer wide receiver pick. He was expected to be one of the immediate threats in the league when it comes to pass catchers. He was good, but he definitely was not great. I would say he's at best the fourth best rookie pass catcher last year, behind Brian Thomas Jr., behind Brock Bowers, behind Malik Neighbors, but he was probably better than you think when you dive into the numbers and especially in the second half of the year. But without him being great, I don't think this team can do much in terms of really competing and really being a threat to win that division. 2024 recap. So the Cardinals were 8-9. They were third in the NFC West and they missed the playoffs. They started out 2-4. They had a very, very tough schedule to start. Then they went on a 4-0 run. I think we all remember that, where they were looking very frisky, looking very good. And then they did what the Cardinals do, ended up on a 2-5 sort of tailspin to finish up 8-9. The kind of the same old story with the Cardinals that looked very similar to what they've looked like in the past. They were 2-6 against playoff teams. They had the 27th easiest schedule, so a pretty difficult schedule, and they had the 26th ranked schedule in terms of luck. So an unlucky schedule. And I define schedule luck as what the schedule looked like in terms of strength when it when you took over-unders into account, so the starting over-unders from 2024, and where the teams actually ended up in terms of how many games they won. So they had a little bit of bad luck when it comes to the opponents they faced. I don't think any of us thought Minnesota was going to be as good as they were last year. None of us thought Washington was going to be as good. We knew Detroit and Buffalo were going to be good, but we didn't know that they were going to lose just 2 games and 3 games. So that's what I mean with schedule luck. Doesn't mean anything in a vacuum, but if a team's significantly unlucky one year, they might bounce back in the next year. They had underachieved by 1 win meaning their Pythagorean win was 9 and they actually won 8. So technically could have won another game here or there, which is reflected in the one score games. They were 3 and 5 in one score games. Um, from the metrics and from the efficiency standpoint, this was a mediocre team, and their record and their perception of this team last year really reflected that. They were pretty damn good when they ran the ball. So that's really what I think they should continue to focus on. If this is meant to be a team that is built in the Philly sort of mindset, which is where Gannon comes from, you kind of want there to be a great running game, and a great offensive line. Obviously, you can't run the ball effectively without both a great back and a great line. And we'll get into some of the running versus passing stuff later on. Just an anecdote that I saw, I think in, where did I see this one? Mike Tanier put this out, but they are terrible in December and January since 2019, 10 and 23. And that is consistent with what we saw last year. The wheels really fell off this team at the end of last season, and it's happened almost every season since 2019. So that's something we need to keep in account, keep in mind when we're talking about the 2025 preview. Some extra metrics here. I mean, they were 23.5 points per game, 22 points per game allowed, 1.2 differential per game. Their offense was top 12. Their defense was top 15 when it comes to just scoring defense. This offense, I think, can stay top 12 or top 15, but the defense really needs to improve. They can't operate sort of middle of the pack in both senses. That's obvious. Okay, moving on to the 2025 overview. So we'll look at the offense here. Um, Big losses. Honestly, they didn't really have any. They lost Tristan Colon, Jackson Barton. Sure, not huge pieces. Um, they added some backups. Jacoby Brissett, kind of a low-key great back, great signing because he's a damn good backup, and he might need to play, to be honest with you, given Kyler Murray's history of injury. Simi Fehiko, Jake Curran, Hayden Connor, grabbed him in the draft. These are backups. These are not expected to be starters, but and which indicates that they are pretty happy with their offense. And if you look on the offense, uh, tried to rank these guys in terms of where they fit on the scale, yellow being average, orange being sort of bottom. They don't have anybody truly terrible on this offense. Included some rookies in here as well as free agent signings. Kyler Murray being kind of the middle of the road quarterback. Their blue chips are Trey McBride. He's one of the best tight ends in football. Paris Johnson's a damn good left tackle. I was generous with Marvin Harrison here. I think if you compare him to all the wide receiver ones, he's definitely not in the top third. But if you consider all wide receivers, he definitely is, and he's got high potential along with Paris Johnson. The X factor on the offense, I think it's Michael Wilson, to be honest with you, because if Harrison plays as a wide receiver one, they really need Michael Wilson to step up and play as a wide receiver two, and really be an effective second option for Kyler Murray. McBride is one of Murray's absolute favorite targets. I would expect to have another great season. So an offense that reflects their stats, right? A good offense, you would never call them bad. Some firepower, definitely some ability to improve with the pass catchers. And if they do, I think we really could be looking at a dynamite offense. I think I mean, not controversial to say, but this is a make or break year for definitely Gannon and his offensive coordinator, Drew Pensig. I mean, this is year four for them, year three for them. This is, if they don't make the playoffs, if they don't take an additional step forward, ownership and management can't really go too much further with them. And I gave Kyler Murray a question mark. I don't think this is a make or break year for him, but if they go backwards, this certainly could be a team that moves on from their quarterback and looks to trade him or to move on from him. Defense. So this is where we've got a significant change, and I frankly like a lot of the changes that were made. So we talked about it. This defense was good, not great, better than you think, but not elite. And they had serious problems last year. They needed to improve the pass rush, they needed to improve the run stop. So and they invested heavily on pass rush. They added Josh Sweat from the Eagles. They added Dalvin Tomlinson on the line. Calais Campbell is coming back. He's up there in age, but gosh, he's had great seasons the past couple in Miami, and obviously he was dynamic and great for them in the past. So him coming back is potentially huge for this defensive line. They drafted a rookie, really highly touted rookie, Walter Nolan, in the first round, and then and that really was the changes they made to shore this defense up. And gosh, on paper, this looks like a really, really good defensive line and a really improved defensive line. So if they hit on even two of these guys, two or three of these guys, this could really change this defense and make it amongst the league's best, which is combined with what we think their offense is, what we almost know their offense is. This could be a very sneaky good team. A couple other changes that they made. Well, let's look at who they lost. Sean Murphy Bunting is on the pup list. He's not going to play at all. That could be huge because he's decent. Patrick Peterson, who has not really been anything the last year or two, officially retired. Like we said, they added Sweat, Tomlinson, Calais Campbell, Nolan, Will Johnson as a that was a pick I loved in the second round. He was when if he was healthy, he would have never been there for them. He would have been the top cornerback gone, you would think. So to get him in round two, it's a risk. He's got some injury history, but that potentially could really improve the back end of this defense, which is already pretty good. Garrett Williams is really talented. Buda Baker is tremendous. So if you combine a damn good secondary with a what looks to be a pretty good defensive line, now you're talking with this team. Blue chips, Buda Baker, Garrett Williams, high potential. I put Nolan in there and Johnson. The two rookies could really make a difference and an impact very, very quickly. X factor, basically the free agents that they signed along their defensive line. If Sweat looks like he did in Philly, if Calais Campbell looks like he did in the past couple of seasons, this could really, really improve this defense, and they could start racking up the wins early, which brings me right to the 2025 schedule. So schedule is either the fifth easiest if you're using 2024 results, or the eighth easiest if you're using the 2025 over-unders set for these teams. And it's the seventh easiest home schedule, 18th easiest road schedule. Now, this, as much as you could find a million bad stats on the Cardinals over the past couple of seasons, like we just looked at their December record, they're really good against the spread on the road. They don't always win the games, but they cover at a rate that is much higher than the average. So you're making money if you're just blindly betting Arizona on the road. The fact that they are pretty good on the road against the spread might mitigate this tough or tougher than average road schedule. And if we look at this schedule, like it is pretty soft early, and then it gets really tough at the time of the year that they tend to lose games. So if they're going to be good, they need to take advantage of the Saints, the Panthers, the Titans, the Colts early. Um, if they aren't 5-2 going into their bye after week 7, it's not going to be it just it's not going to be a playoff team. But if they can get out to a fast start, they can afford to lose in Tampa or in Los Angeles or in Houston, um, in Seattle. Like this gets tricky, but it's overall a pretty easy schedule, looks to be. And you combine that with hopefully better schedule luck. So if these teams that we expect to be bad are bad, they're probably looking at a better season than last year, which is to say that they are going to get to 9 wins at least if things play out the way they look like they could play out. Okay, so the next section is some advanced stats and some against the spread leans. Like we said before, the Pythagorean was 9.0 versus 8 actual wins. Technically underachieved, but when it's that small of a number, you don't really bat an eye on that one. Same thing with their close game record, 3-5. Could have been 4-4, could have been 5-3. Doesn't really move the needle. It's not like they are horrible in close games this year, at least. Their turnover differential, which I only look at fumbles because they tend to be, quote, lucky or unlucky, was just -1. So doesn't really indicate anything that will change significantly, or return back to the mean. That kind of is the mean. Um, the one that jumped out a little bit to me was 2023 to 2024 win increase. They increased their wins by 4 games last year. Obviously, 2 years ago was a disaster. They were only won 4 games, and they doubled that up to 8. So now, if you are leaning over, that's something to consider. Are they going to increase it again by another 2 or 3 wins? That doesn't always happen. Sometimes this reverts back, and you kind of are sitting there with a 3-year split of, okay, we know what this team was. They're a 4-win team, not a 9-win, 10-win team. We talked about strength of schedule. It went from pretty difficult to what looks like a pretty easy schedule. The offensive line, they're getting pretty good with O-line and D-line stats, so we can kind of look at those now. Uh, they were average at pass protection, above average run protection. Pretty good offensive line. There's no red flags there. And the D-line was bad. They were below average at pass rush and kind of average at run stop. So need to improve both of those things. And I think they did, honestly. They at least tried. You can't tell them you can't say they didn't try to fix these D-line issues. Some Looked at some 3-year trends. This is when things get pretty rough with the Cardinals. They're 30th in Pythagorean wins versus actual wins. 4.5. That's saying that effectively they gave away 4 games. They were inefficient when you look at their point differential, and they were 31st in one-score games, 7-16. So even though it wasn't terrible last year, it's been really bad the years prior to that. The only team with a worse record in the 3 years in one-score games is the Bears, and that's a we know what's going on with the Bears. So that's either it's okay, this team's been a little bit underachieving, and they just need to come back to the mean, and they should win 9, 10, 11 games this year, or it's an indicator that this coaching staff, maybe this quarterback or both are just not up to the task and it's time to move on in the desert. Early against the spread leans. I do like them a lot in a bunch of games, which is interesting. Week one against the Saints, like I said, they're pretty good on the road against the spread. Now they're usually an underdog, so take that as maybe a stay away for week one. They're not always a road favorite. And even though New Orleans, I don't expect to be very good at all this year, still a tougher place to play. And 6 points is might be a little rich for some people, but I do like that one. I like them as a favorite in week one. I really like them in week two as well against the Panthers, giving 4 right now. Um, as well as week five versus the Titans, giving 6. I think that those are soft teams with a really, really bad road record when it comes to covering numbers. So I really like them in some of these early games. Then as you get to later on in the season, these are a little bit tougher picks, especially making these in August. But let's look at week 10 at Seattle, week 13 at Tampa, and week 15 at Houston. Those are 6 ATS leans that right now I have my eye on. I think that they match up well against those teams, and the numbers that are out there for those games right now are pretty favorable for Arizona. Okay, and this brings us to our conclusion. Did they address the two big questions? For the defense, I honestly do. I think they did. I do think that this defense is going to be top 10 and really a problem for a lot of teams. And then the second big question, which was regarding Marvin Harrison Jr.'s ability to take a big leap forward and really be a true number one receiver, giving them an additional elite pass catcher to go along with Trey McBride. Maybe I'm not as confident about that one. And that's okay at this point of the season. We'll see. It'll take probably a couple of weeks to see what Marvin Harrison can bring to the table for them in 2025 that he maybe wasn't bringing consistently in 24. And the initial over under, I'm leaning over. Their over under set at 8.5 right now. I'm thinking 9 to 11 wins. They should be a contender for the playoffs. They're a they're not a terrible play to win the division, to be honest with you. It's 4-1. They're probably considered the third best or maybe fourth best team in the division right now, but I don't know. I kind of like that one. If we don't think the Rams can repeat and we're not as high on the Niners as some others, it's intriguing. Let's put it that way. They need to focus on this run game because the run game is their strength, to be honest with you, and then it could set up so much in the passing game. So hopefully early on in the season they're continuing to focus on that. What I'll say about the Cardinals, and I the prediction, you kind of have to take a big swallow and make the over prediction because this team so many times has looked good, been good on paper, and then they're just disappointing, last year included. I would say that I don't think we're getting another 8-9 or 9-8 type of season out of them. I don't think they're going to be middle of the pack. I think they either the wheels fall off and they're back to 4 wins, 5 wins, or this becomes a 10, 11 win team and they make the playoffs and maybe even are a little bit frisky as a wild card team. If you don't think this team has it at all, it might be smart to do some adjusted unders. Under 4.5 is paying out at plus 750. That's that's pretty low. I don't know if they're going to be that bad, but under 6.5 is paying out at almost 3-1. So that is, if you don't like this team, that might be the play, the minus 6.5. If you do like them, either just take the over 8.5 straight up. I think it's safe, or go a little bit longer odds. Try to take them to win the division. If worst case scenario, you might be in a good head spot come December when the wheels do tend to fall off for this team. But I have to say it scares me because it's a little bit trendy right now, but I like the Cardinals this year. I think that they're going to be a playoff team. I think that they're going to be good pretty quick too. I think they'll get off to a pretty hot start, and I do think this year's a little bit different because of the softer schedule, because of the improved defense. I do think that this can sustain. Not calling for anything crazy here. They're not going to be competing for the Super Bowl or anything like that. But if we think, I do think that this team can jump ahead and really take that next step towards being a contender. Okay, so that wraps up today's preview. Tomorrow we will be previewing the Atlanta Falcons. And until next time, always remember to bet with your head, not over it.